Hi, Movie Space here. Today, I'm going to explain an American comedy drama fantasy film called The Cobbler. Spoilers ahead, watch out, and take care. Old but gold. This saying goes perfectly with our story's hero, Max Simkin, the middle aged cobbler that is about to get his world upside down. In an old cobbler shop in the Lower East Side of New York in 1983, a group of Jewish men are gathered to discuss the crooked man called Gurgerman, as he was terrorizing them, running them out of business. When they decide to put the matters in the cobbler's hands, Pinkas Simkin, they hand him a pair of shoes that belongs to Gurgerman, as Pinkas is working on them in the basement of his shop. Using a rather special sewing machine, he welcomes his little boy Herschel inside to tell him the story of this machine, explaining its importance to them. In the present day, Pinkas' great-grandson Max Simkin is working as a cobbler at his old man's shop, living a dull, ordinary life. One day just outside his shop, Max, watching a beautiful young couple, Emiliano and Taryn, was approached by his neighbor Jimmy the barber. He asks him if he's going to find a woman to settle. Max responds that he wanna change, meaning leaving the shop behind, which was not pleasant for Jimmy to hear. A young woman, Carmen Herrera, enters Max's shop one day, presenting her case as she represents the Lower East New York Committee. She's trying to prevent big-time companies and developers from tearing down old buildings and parts of the neighborhood, replacing them with huge compounds. Max shows no interest whatsoever and that he's in favor of selling if given the right price. After taking his signature, Carmen leaves hoping that he'd come around. Coming home to his old, sick mother Sarah, they talk about her missing his father Abraham. One day, a local thug, Leon Ludlow, arrives with an arrogant, rude attitude for a shoe cleaning. As Max was cleaning them for him, Leon tells him that he has wristwatches that are 3 times worth his shop, then leaves him a pair of shoes to repair, to be picked up later in the evening. As Max was repairing Leon's shoes, his sewing machine broke, so he had to use the old one his father left in the basement. After finishing it, as he was waiting for Leon, Max tried his shoes in front of a mirror, to be shocked of the thug's reflection. After panicking and taking the shoes off, then rapidly closing the shop, he whirls them again to understand what in the world is going on with him. When he puts on the thug's shoes, Max's body changes. He starts trying other customers' shoes to no avail, only to be stricken by the realization that this magic was caused by his father's special sewing machine. So he began stitching shoes with it and trying them on, along with the different bodies they come with. After pranking Jimmy by being an old black man, Max tries an Asian man, hangs around Chinatown, practices some chi with locals, another time as a black man who eats at a fancy restaurant, goes to the restroom, switches back to Max, then leaves without paying. And another time as Leon to rob a wealthy man's shoes to have fun in his car. After going home, Max is talking to his mother about her wishes. She tells him that she'd love to have a dinner with his father. Back at the shop, the hot woman Taryn comes in with Emiliano's shoes to be repaired. After stitching them, he goes out wearing them to a local bar trying his luck. But just as the girl was about to go home with, she leaves after finding out that he lives with his mother. Walking by a building, he crosses paths with the real Emiliano leaving the building. Max enters the latter's apartment to find Taryn taking a shower and invites him in. With eagerly taking his clothes off, he realizes that he can't take off his shoes or he'll be exposed, so he leaves in a hurry. Back home, he finds his mother watching the news, where it shows the reporter Donald, whom is a customer of his, and Carmen along with an old man, Pan Solomon, and other protesters. Max meets Carmen the other day, who was helping some elderly people in their chores, as he realizes that he began having feelings for her. Later at the shop, Max stitches his father's shoes to surprise his mother and fulfill her wish. Back home, he wears his father's shoes, they have dinner, dance together. It was the best night of her life, only to wake up tomorrow morning to find out that she passed away in her sleep. After grieving and setting Shiva for the week, Max returns to work, when Leon comes asking for his shoes and threatens to kill Max if he didn't find them by tomorrow. Using multiple shoes, Max follows Leon around town to find out that he works as a thug debt collector and beats people for money. As he puts his shoes and goes into his apartment, he finds Macy, his girlfriend whom he used to abuse, leaving. He searches for his watches and stumbles upon a box full of guns. He takes out a taser and stupidly tries it on himself to faint away. After some time unconscious, Max wakes up then hurries out of the house. to find Leon at the door. The latter starts beating him up, but Max manages to tase him. After waking up later, Max asks him where he's hiding the watches. After some resistance, he finds them and takes them. As he was about to tase him back to sleep so he can have time to leave, two of Leon's thugs come to his place for some business. He wears Leon's shoes, then goes with them for a ride, to find himself at the back of a truck repair shop, with the rest of his thugs beating a man called Patrick to his death for stealing from them. After having a panic attack in the restroom, he comes back to the hostage and his thugs and orders them to set him free. Later, they stop by the residence of a slum boss, Elaine Greenwald, who gives him a hefty sum of money to evict Solomon out of his apartment. After going back to Leon's place, he goes to his room wearing the stilettos of a transsexual woman, to be surprised by a free Leon, who tackles him to the ground and begins strangling him. When Max takes off one shoe and transforms back to his original self, Leon freaks out. But as he tries to assault Max back, the latter accidentally hits him with the heel of the other shoe, piercing his neck and killing him. After having a panic attack, he rushes home and falls asleep on the couch. Tomorrow he goes to the police, confesses about his crime, brings them to Leon's apartment to find out that everything has disappeared. Leon's body, the guns, the money, and of course the shoes, which he mysteriously finds when he goes back to his shop. After having an altercation with Jimmy, who compared Max's recent odd behavior to his father's, Max transforms as the trans woman goes to return the money back to Elaine, who gets furious and orders her man to kill him. Max manages to scare them off and run away as he transforms into a dead man. After making up with Jimmy apologizing to him, Max hurries to Carmen's office to tell her about Greenwald's plan to evict Solomon, whom they visit at his apartment to warn him, yet he doesn't seem to care at all. Max, with a plan in his head, transforms into Solomon after taking his shoes, cuts a deal with Greenwald for a ticket to Chicago and $100,000 to be delivered to his apartment by tomorrow. After Greenwald's thugs Jeffrey and Brian brought the money, the real Solomon had them leave their shoes outside the apartment for Max to take them. Later, Max baits Jeffrey looking like Leon. Jeffrey follows him inside the apartment to find Brian tied to a chair and get tased by him, as Brian was Max after all. Meanwhile, the real Solomon is escorted with the real Brian to Chicago, who got arrested at the bus station. Greenwald goes to Solomon's apartment to be surprised of Max as Solomon's in there. She threatens to kill him and his daughter, only to be caught on camera by the reporter Danny Donald, and she gets arrested. Back at the shop, Taryn comes to retrieve Emiliano's shoes. As she goes out, Carmen comes in to thank him for his deeds, asks him about how he could pull this off, then strikes a date with him. Later, Max visits Leon's ex wearing his shoes, giving her his watches for her to sell and wishing her good luck. Walking outside Macy's apartment, he was kidnapped by Patrick, the man he once set free. Thinking that there is no way out of this, they got hit by a car. Max wakes up in Jimmy's shop after saving him of the car crash. He gives him pickles, but as Max refused, Jimmy pushes more, saying that pickles preserve strength with the whole jumping from body to body situation. As Max is being shocked by how Jimmy knew about him, Jimmy sits, removes his shoe to become Abraham, Max's father, all this time. Abraham tells the angry, sad, yet happy to see his father, Max, that it's time for him to claim his birthright and to know the whole story. He leads him down the basement where he finds dozens and dozens of important people's shoes. After crying on his shoulders, remembering his mother, Abraham takes Max home on a private car with a driver. To Max's surprise that not only cobblers have such secrets as the magical stitcher, but other tradesmen as well, and finishes up with telling his son the story that began a long time ago.